Tonight, I'm very happy we're speaking with Mr. Sudeep Sharma. He's currently in Los Angeles. He's been in the film industry as a teacher and as a programmer, curator, currently working for Sundance Film Festival. How are you, Sudeep?
Good. I'm okay, I guess. That's I think what it always is, right? Like
You let
everything is
us know a little bit about yourself. How did you get involved in the film industry?
yeah, sure. I actually I kind of had a circuitous route to it, I think. You know, I actually started off in academia really, where I got my master's and then eventually I studied and I got my PhD in film and television studies at UCLA. And my dissertation was on television. Actually, it was about TV news and uses of history through documentary. And I during that time where I was working to be I believe I thought a professor, a full-time tenured professor in an American university. I was teaching a lot of places, and I started working at film festivals. And I was at first just a job to make money as a gig, you know. And I got more into programming, and especially one of the biggest things for me was I worked at this place called the Indian Film Festival, Los Angeles, and we played independent Indian cinema. So it was films. There were Indian films, a lot, and Indian diasporic films, a lot of Indian American, Indian British, but a lot of Indian films from India that were for independent audiences. They weren't Bollywood films. They weren't all Hindi films. And I didn't, until I started working there, I just didn't realize the depth of the industry for films like that. When I was growing up, I thought Indian films were just Bollywood films, because I was born and raised in the United States. My parents were from India. And I just seeing those movies, working at that festival, and it just kind of opened my eyes to the contemporary industry and what festivals are, and what they the kinds of films they play and the audiences that go to them. And I just slowly started working at more and more festivals, and I was into it and I was interested in it. So I've you know, I've worked at a lot of festivals, and I was teaching, and I've also worked at Sundance in the past, but this is my second year as a full-time position at Sundance as a programmer. And so it's been like a long journey to this point, but I think that's there've been a lot of different elements to it, but I feel like now it's just like my full-time job working here.
Yes. Do you do programming for short films, long films, or documentaries, feature, or do you look for films in all categories?
I look, it's at Sundance, I am a features programmer, and I'm part of our discussions for all our features programming, but I do focus on documentary. That's a section I have, you know, along with some other colleagues, so more of a focus and responsibility about looking at, but I am involved in the other ones. But to your question, I also work at the Palm Springs Short Festival. I'm a co-director of programming there. I've worked there for several years. And at Palm Springs, we're a US film festival, shorts festival. You want to play shorts. It's different from the Palm Springs Feature Festival, which is in January. I only work on the shorts portion, which is in June. We were supposed to be in June until COVID had canceled it. And but we play about 300 shorts there. And they're from around the world. And since, you know, like you're saying, like I worked there for several years in shorts. I've also worked at Aspen Short Fest in the past. And I've worked at places like the Indian Film Festival that I was talking about. That's more like here in the United States, like a more like ethnic regional type festival. So I do have a lot of experience in different categories of film festivals and programming. But I would say feature documentary is my focus.
Tell me about this year edition of Sundance. I think it was done before the news started to propagate about COVID, correct?
Yes, we were, in retrospect, very lucky. I feel like it's funny because it's the same year, it's 2020, and we had the festival in January, and to think back on that now, I think it was very blessed to not have this affect us in the same way as it affected other festivals to decide to cancel or not. Yeah, no, it was I think, one of the best festivals we've had. It was lots of, I think, great films that is just very difficult and sad time, I think, because I think that the films that we played there, especially on the documentary side, but I think all the films, they'll have other festival runs after, and they'll be playing in theaters. And, the festival in January is it's for the industry and for, some certain cineasts, it's a big deal and they go to it. But I think for the general public, it's hard to get to Park City and to watch these movies. And usually what ends up happening is that the awareness and the effect of the films that we play there become more public as more people watch the films. And just not to have festivals and not having theaters, it's just sad. It's great that some of these films are playing streaming, and then that there are all these interesting and exciting partnerships outside of just major streaming platforms, like with theaters and showing audiences these films in different ways. But it's not like it used to be, and it's hard not to just feel bad about that. But it was I think people, a lot of the films that we played are finding audiences, and people are responding to them in positive ways.
Yes. Which films you have selected? Let's say the showcasing this year of your film. Which film you have selected? You think they were very well received? They were of good quality.
Yeah. Well, we are, the way we program at our festival is that we don't, even though someone like me, will focus on documentaries, we work on the whole feature slate together. So I'm just saying that it's hard for me to say I programmed this film, because I think it's a team of us did it. But looking at the US doc competition, these are the film, 16 films that are the kind of one of the highlights of in terms of documentary, US documentary. I would say there was a lot of great films, and one of my, one that's getting right now a lot of coverage. It was just there was a review of it in the New York Times. Was Boy State, directed by Jesse Moss and Amanda McBain. It's a really great documentary about young men who do this American political week-long kind of practice pretend governor race, and it kind of says a lot about our politics now and in the future. And I think it's a really powerful. It's a powerful film, and just very moving, I think, and it's very timely in terms of what's happening now. And another one I would mention too is Time, directed by Garrett Bradley. That was it's a documentary about a family whose the husband father has been in jail for 20 years, and the mother has been holding the family together. And it's a lot of home video footage and footage that Gary Bradley filmed with them. It's very intimate, and it's just really about lots of about the prison system in the United States and family separations. But it's really about a lot of just the nature of time itself, and just a beautiful movie. And I would really recommend people watching it. I could mention other ones, but those are some of my favorite. I also liked our international documentary competition was pretty. It's always really, for us as a US festival, I think it's a really exciting section, because I think it has the most experimentation that happens in the field. And the jury award winner for that section was Epicentro by Hubert Sapir, who directed Darwin's Nightmare. And it's kind of a cinematic essay about Cuba and its relationship with the United States, and relationship with the West in general, and about the cinematic imagination and memory, and how that creates the image of a nation. And it's a hard film to describe, I think, but it's a really great movie. And another movie in that section, the world I would just mention, is Earth is Blue. The Earth is Blue as an Orange, which is about a family in Ukraine living under war, and it's mostly it's the women of the family, and the daughter is going to film school, and they decide to make a film. And it's it's a film about war and surviving, but it's also just a beautiful movie about cinema itself. So those are some of the ones I'll just mention.
Yes, I've never been in Sundance Festival, but I went to Tribeca Festival several times,
Uh-huh.
and I compared the two festivals. And the thing that I think also one of the head of the festival moved from Sundance to Tribeca, Jeffrey. I think
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Jeffrey Gilmore. Yeah.
Yes, I met Jeffrey on several
Uh-huh.
occasions here in Egypt and in Tribeca.
Yeah.
I want to ask you really because I've been following the news. Tribeca Festival started very small after 9/11, and it was like an independent film festival for young and rising filmmakers,
Hmm.
specifically from New York, I think, to support New Yorkers. And then when I started to attend, it was, a huge film festival. Also this year, they did like an online screenings,
Yeah.
well, I as other, big events like Comic Con as well,
Hmm.
some stuff online.
Hmm.
And in regards of Sundance, I see a lot of people think right now it's a mainstream festival. It doesn't help independent filmmakers like before. I remember like 20 years ago, Sundance helped to discover companies like Miramax, people like Matt Damon, Ben Affleck. They screened their first films there. What do you think? Still Sundance like a platform for indie filmmaker, rising filmmaker?
I believe so. Totally. I mean, I think that criticism is something that is said all the time, and I think that's it's the nature of uh, the fact it is. I think that Sundance is the biggest festival in the United States. And like it's the one that people pay attention to, and it's because of that. Then it becomes like, well, is this festival still discovering new voices and talent? And I just you look at the films that we play and the careers that people have afterwards, and they might go on to make big studio films or something like that, but this is the way that they got into the industry. This is how people became aware of them, and I think that those films, like, so someone makes a film, they go make a Marvel movie. We don't maybe play the Marvel movie, but we played their first movie, which is an independent film usually, and I think that like I think this time is so it's such a crazy time in general, like what's going to happen to theaters, this idea of what is cinema, what is the film going experience, and I feel like the idea of small, intimate, and small being not in scope, but in budget and in you know what they're trying to to the experiences they're speaking to, like the more personal and intimate and almost handmade quality, the type of filmmaking that's that's not going to go away, I think. And I think that, like, in our program, we have different sections. We have films that are bigger films with bigger celebrities, um, people, more brand names are known, films that might be going directly to theaters, um, but they still have an essence to them, and an ethic that I think that are more like the majority of the films that we're playing, that I think that, like, sometimes get lost because maybe everyone's attention is on these bigger celebrity titles. But last year we played 120 features, and it always surprises me that, because we, like, know all of them and care about them, but you realize that a lot of people maybe aren't as aware if you're not there or just seeing it there, and I think that we are still providing a platform for those types of movies and a space that they might, especially in the American context, might not get elsewhere. So I still believe it. I mean, I know things are changing, but I do believe that. I look at us and the films that we play and the filmmakers that we self-support, and I feel like we're still doing good work, I think, and that aren't just uh, promoting the industry in a bland way. I think that we're elevating people that deserve to be elevated and are helping build careers because of that.
Yes, and on the other hand, and the festival is is a very good space for film companies to look for new films. Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
after a few weeks of the film festival, you start to see a lot of screenings, either online or big releases
Yeah,
that were acquired during the festival. So it's still a good scouting space for
yeah.
acquisition managers.
Well, I know I think it really says something about our festival, but I think festivals in general, right? That these events create value and interest in the films that are hard to generate on their own. And I think that, like, if you're trying to buy films or you want to share films to the public in a commercial sense, even if you're a streamer and you're trying to get content, these are places that you look for them, because we're not making movies. We're not we're selecting them and trying to showcase them, and we're a disassociated broker in this sense, right? Like, we're not being paid off. A lot of times these purchases too. I think there's this idea that Sundance gets that money. We don't get that money. We don't we have nothing to do with that. Like, I think that sometimes it kind of comes back the other way, where they're like, well, these films sold, and they didn't, the box office didn't do well or something like that, and that becomes something about the festival. And we are not the ones saying buy that film for this amount of money. We're not a commercial entity in that way. We're not doing that, but it is good to see these sales, because it one says the relevancy of the festival, I think, and then two, it means a lot to the filmmakers. It's their careers, and I think that, like, the more they sell it for, it shows a larger investment in them and their work, and that's great to see. That's, like, we're happy about that.
Did you start to look for films for next year?
Yes, we are deep in this screening process. Our call for entries are open. People are submitting. We are watching, and we are trying to. We're usually, our process is we lock in late November, and we're still on. That involves then a ton of viewing between now and then, and as a team, and discussing a lot of discussions, and yeah, we're on the road of doing it. We're on the way of doing it.
Excellent. So the selection is finalized like November, end of.
Late November, usually late November.
But tell me about, there are worries right now when the weather gets colder that there is a new attack from COVID.
Yeah.
And tell me, right now, as part of the festival management, did you think about other alternatives, for the organization next year?
Well, we have announced recently, our festival director, Tabitha Jackson, had announced a kind of a hybrid plan that we're working towards, where we would still have a physical presence and festival in Utah, but then other screenings in hub locations and satellite locations like Los Angeles or New York, possibly London, and other partnerships with art houses. Like you're saying, the winter brings on other challenges, and the idea here in the United States, like, they've been talking about a second wave, but it's just been one wave. We have not, it's not really broken, and it's hard to, I think we're talking about all this stuff because we don't know yet what the situation will completely be in January. We are planning for multiple contingencies and plans, and we're at the mercy of this virus, like everyone else, I think. It's just a unfortunate situation, and it's really hard, and but we want, as much as possible, the core idea is that we will have the festival, and that the audiences will be able to see films. And there are different venues and avenues that could work, you know, including digital. And I think that all these plannings are happening right now at the same time, and we are building it now and trying to decide what it's going to be. But it's hard to say. I mean, right? I mean, like in 2 months, like 2 months ago, feels way different than now, and who knows what another 2 months will bring. So it's we're like, I think a lot of other festivals obviously are all dealing with this, and that's why I said earlier that I feel like we're very lucky that we had at least had the festival this year. You know, I think it's I think something that everyone's obviously dealing with, and something that we have to talk with other people, like our you know, our partners, and you know, just knowing what Park City is, what it'll be like. So it's hard to say.
Yes, but you know, there were challenges during this year, you know, about shooting feature films and documentaries.
Yes,
Did you receive lesser number than last year, the
we
submission, or the same number?
we are currently on track for the same number, which is surprising, you know, considering what you're saying. But there could be lots of reasons for that, and we're still early in our submissions period. We haven't, you know, we opened in May, and submissions end in the end of September. So I think the next 2 months, next month and a half, really, we'll see. But you know, it's interesting. I think that it depends on the types of films and the types of stories and where they are in production. I think a lot of times people might have been planning to film over the summer, and they might not be able to, or they've come up with some other alternative in terms of what they're doing and filming. I think a lot of documentaries are in different places, I think, because some documentaries, you know, they might be more archival based. They might have filmed everything already and they're in the edit process. That might be true for feature, you know, fictional narrative films as well. But there are films. I think what's happening is that, you know, there hasn't yet been this gap that's appeared yet that I am aware of yet, you know, because it's just the production has been going on so strongly for so long in so many places. I also think another thing is just world production's different too. I mean, I think that things are different elsewhere, you know. They're not the same as the United States. So, but I'm you know, there was an IndieWire article recently. I don't know if people have seen about people shooting right now. So I think it's like a lot of this stuff, it's to be seen what's going to happen, you know. And but it's worrisome. It's totally not. It's not great, you know. Like it's not a. But it's. I'm amazed that people are still making things. I think it's really impressive, and I think it speaks to people's the industry and the independent industries, like their just drive to create. That's impressive in that way.
Yes, and any films about COVID you received?
I'm sure I have not seen a ton yet, but I'm sure they're coming. Like I think they're like I used to work in shorts at Sundance as well, and I worked at Palm Springs. I am more certain for short. I think COVID shorts are going to be a big thing. I feel like that's going to be
Big focus,
yeah,
especially.
yeah. Yeah, maybe something similar to this, like type of us talking, like this type of thing.
Okay, Sudeep, I want to thank you very much for this talk, and it's a pleasure talking to you.
Appreciate it.
And I wish you all the best in all the selection, the screenings, and everything. And I hope to hear some good news about your work and the next edition of Sundance.
Well, thanks for having me, and I was glad to talk about it. And yeah, no, I just thank you for even doing these things and talking to people. I think it's like a very strange time, and I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudeep. Have a good day.
You too. You too.